everything that hurts you today, ... Tomorrow will be the light that will heal you.
Tell me.
How many times have you asked yourself if certain pains happen to you? Why does life insist on throwing obstacles at you when all you wanted was a little peace? Sometimes it feels like the universe goes silent when you need answers most, doesn't it? And yet, there's something inside you that whispers, calm down. One day everything will make sense. What you discover now may surprise you because perhaps what hurts you today is exactly what will make you shine in the future. Long ago, Emmanuel, the spirit who guided Chico Xavier in so many messages of wisdom, spoke about the power of time and pain. He said that time is the greatest revealer of divine intentions, that nothing, absolutely nothing happens by chance. Every tear, every loss, every silence is part of a process much greater than what we can see. What if I told you that the situations that hurt you most could be the very ground where your spirit is flourishing? You've been there, that moment when everything seems to fall apart, but later, you realize that it was there that something within you began to awaken. Emmanuel called this time of the spirite time that doesn't follow the hands of a human clock, but the rhythm of the soul. While here you count the days up there, lessons are learned. Pain, according to him, is not a punishment, but a divine instrument of polishing. Just as gold needs fire to be purified, the spirit needs life's trials to reveal its brilliance. It's hard to admit this when we're in the midst of suffering, but it's at that very moment, when all seems lost, that the light begins to move silently. Stay with me until the end, because what Emmanuel revealed about the power of time can completely change the way you view your pain. He said that time doesn't just heal wounds, reveals purposes. The difference is that while the mind complains, the spirit understands. The mind sees the now. The spirit sees the forever. That's why today's suffering can be the stepping stone to your spiritual elevation tomorrow. Maybe you're experiencing something you don't understand, but that doesn't mean God has been silent, only that the divine plan is being worked out. Behind the scenes of your existence, Emmanuel teaches us that time is the interpreter of divine will, and what you now call a delay may actually be a necessary detour to get you to the right place. Think about the times when life took something you so desperately wanted away from you, a love, a job, an opportunity, and later you realized it was the best thing that could have happened. Pain is stubborn, but it is wise. It visits only those who have something great to learn. And perhaps that's what Emmanuel wants to remind you today. Suffering is not the end. It's the beginning of a transformation. It's the cocoon of the soul. The butterfly doesn't understand the darkness of the cocoon until the day it discovers that silence was, in fact, the time to prepare for flight. So, if right now you feel like the world is falling apart, remember, time is the invisible sculptor who works silently. With each passing day, it sculpts in you strength, faith, and light that will still surprise you. And what seems like confusion today will one day become clarity, because, in the end, Emmanuel was right. What hurts you today will make you shine tomorrow. But what exactly did Emmanuel mean when he said that pain is a blessing in disguise? And how can this wisdom transform the way you face the challenges of the present? That's what we're going to reflect on now. ... Have you ever wondered why certain pains seem to insist on lingering, even when you believe you've already learned everything you need to? It's as if the universe tests your faith, your balance, and your patience, as if there were something invisible happening behind every fall, every silence, every apparent failure. What if I told you that none of this is coincidence, that there's a greater wisdom guiding your every step, even when you feel completely lost? Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover now could change the way you view time, pain, and even the very meaning of your existence. Emmanuel, the spirit who accompanied Chico Xavier for decades, spoke about this with almost divine clarity. He wasn't talking about religion, he was talking about the soul, about purpose, about learning. For Emmanuel, each spirit walks at its own pace, a time measured not in days or years, but in experiences and lessons. He said that time is life's greatest educator, and that pain is the wisest teacher the soul can find. Pain, he asserted, is the force that refines the spirit so that it becomes purer. Have you ever felt this firsthand? That feeling that something painful was actually making you stronger even if you only realized it afterward. Today, we live in a rushed era. We want quick answers, instant healing, and happiness that doesn't wait for time to blossom. But spiritual time doesn't run on the same clock as ours. While humans seek immediacy, the spirit works silently, shaping every emotion, every choice, every new beginning. Emmanuel explained that, on the spiritual plane, time isn't punishment, it's a tool. And what seems slow here is preparation there, because not everything that hurts is punishment. Sometimes, it's preparation. It's curious to see how we forget this amidst the modern rush. When something goes wrong, we believe God has forgotten us. When we face loss, we think life is unfair. But according to Emmanuel, suffering is the soil where the soul plants its deepest virtues: faith, patience, love, and understanding. He said that every pain carries within it a message and that only time can translate it. Perhaps that's why so many things only make sense when we look back. Have you ever noticed this? When, after a while, you realize that that disappointment saved you from something worse, that loss pushed you onto the right path, or that silence was the pause the universe needed to put things right. Emmanuel invites us to look at pain not with revulsion but with reverence, because according to him, suffering comes not to punish, but to teach. It is the polishing stone that removes the impurities from the soul, and reveals the essence that time has been polishing. While the world demands haste, Emmanuel reminds you of patience. While social media tells you everything must happen now, it teaches you that truly valuable things arise in their own time, that the right time is never late. He said that the divine clock never errs, that there is a purpose behind every tear, and that no pain is wasted. From a spiritual perspective, even suffering has a sacred role to make the soul grow. So when you feel like time is testing you, remember that it's only teaching you. Emmanuel said that time is God's gardener and that we are the seeds. Some germinate quickly, others take a while to bloom, ... But all without exception bloom the moment they're ready, and that's precisely what we're going to talk about now: how to understand this time of the soul, and how Emmanuel's vision can help us transform pain into learning and suffering into light. Because what you're about to hear next could forever change the way you understand the purpose of your trials. Have you ever wondered why pain insists on appearing? It's just when you're trying to move forward? Why? When everything seems to be going well, something comes along and shatters your plans, your certainties, your peace. Maybe you think it's bad luck, destiny, or even punishment. But what if in fact it's a calling? A silent invitation to see something you haven't yet. What you'll discover now may surprise you because there's meaning behind every tear. And what hurts you today may be preparing the soil where your brilliance will blossom. Emmanuel, the spirit who so often spoke through Chico Xavier, said that pain comes not to destroy, but to awaken. He reminded us that every suffering is a teacher in disguise, that true spiritual learning happens when we stop fighting what we feel and begin to listen to what life is trying to show us. When you're going through a difficult time, he would say, ask yourself, what is this pain trying to teach me? This simple question can completely transform how you experience the challenges of the present. Have you ever been there? That moment when something that seemed like the end turned out to be the beginning of a new phase. Sometimes the loss of a job pushes you toward the purpose you've been putting off. A broken heart can make way for a more mature, more conscious, more genuine love. Frustration can be the push the universe uses to pull you off a path that wasn't yours. But at the time, we don't understand. Pain confuses, fear blinds, and time seems to stand still. And that's precisely where transformation lies. Emmanuel said that the spirit matures when it begins to see meaning even in suffering. That nothing that happens is useless, not falls, not goodbyes, not silence. Life uses pain as a tool for refinement. And when we begin to realize this, pain stops being an enemy and becomes an ally. Because each time you fall and get up, something inside you changes. Your strength increases, your faith deepens, your soul expands. Stay with me until the end. Because what Emmanuel teaches about transforming pain into light can completely change the way you face the present. Think of everything you've overcome. Moments that seemed impossible, situations you thought you couldn't brand yet. You survived. More than that, you grew. Pain made you wiser, more empathetic, more human. And this is what Emmanuel meant when he said that the butterfly doesn't understand its cocoon until the day it begins to fly. Pain is the cocoon of the soul dark. Tight, lonely, but it is there that wings are born. Today, perhaps you're inside this cocoon. Perhaps the world seems heavy, answers are elusive, and your faith is being tested. But believe me, there's an invisible movement happening, something being shaped within you. Because suffering isn't a sign of weakness, it's the beginning of a rebuilding process. Emmanuel reminds us that what hurts you now is writing the most beautiful chapter of your story, even if you can't yet read between the lines. And it's when you begin to accept what life brings without resistance, without rebellion, but with trust, that pain transforms into wisdom. The heart understands that certain losses are deliverances, and that certain silences are answers. And little by little, the darkness begins to lighten. So before you ask the pain to go away, maybe it's time to ask, what is it trying to show me? Because it could be that at this very moment, it's just preparing for the moment when you'll spread your wings and realize that the cocoon was never the end, but just the beginning. Smooth transition. But how do we do this in practice? How do we transform suffering into learning and pain into light amidst the difficulties of everyday life? That's exactly what we're going to talk about now. Have you ever noticed how time has the power to reveal truths that previously seemed invisible? Sometimes we go through something so painful that it seems impossible to imagine a purpose behind it. But then time passes, and suddenly you understand. Everything starts to make sense, as if each tear had been placed in the right place to lead you here. And this is exactly what Emmanuel was talking about time as the greatest interpreter of destiny. Oh, God's silent messenger. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover now could completely change the way you view pain, loss, and even the silences of life. Emmanuel, the spirit who accompanied Chico Xavier in so many messages of light, said that time is the invisible sculptor who works unhurriedly but with perfection. He takes the marble of your pain and sculpts, little by little, the masterpiece you will yet be. Have you ever experienced this? That moment when you look back and realize that everything you thought was punishment was actually the beginning of your transformation? That the end of something was just the beginning of a new version of you, stronger, more lucid, more serene. Time possesses this divine wisdom. It doesn't erase pain, it transforms it. Every second that passes is shaping your soul, even when you believe nothing is happening. And that's where the beauty of the spiritual process comes in. Trust. Emmanuel taught that trusting in time is the same as trusting in God. Because, just like the seasons, life also has its winter, autumn, and spring. There are moments when the cold freezes, but it is in this cold that the spirit rests and strengthens to blossom again. Perhaps you are now experiencing one of those winters of the soul. Everything seems at a standstill. Answers are unavailable, and your heart feels the weight of silence. But remember what Emmanuel said. Every tear is a seed of light in the soil of the soul. No suffering is in vain. What hurts you today may be the reason for your gratitude tomorrow. Time is the great translator of divine intentions, it reveals. Meaning when the pain is dissipated and the heart is ready to understand. And it's curious how only time has the delicacy to show us the reason for things. When we're in the midst of a storm, everything seems chaotic, unfair, and directionless. But time, with its infinite patience, organizes the chaos. It rearranges what seemed broken, heals what seemed impossible, and, little by little, shows us that there is purpose even in suffering. Emmanuel said that time is the messenger of hope, because it always brings something new, an answer, a change, an understanding. Have you ever noticed that time also speaks? Not with words, but with signs. Sometimes it speaks through an unexpected reunion. It's an opportunity that arises out of nowhere, a peace that arrives after so much crying. It's time saying, now you understand. Now you are ready. And when we understand this, we begin to look back not with regret, but with gratitude. Pain becomes a teacher. Silence becomes a guide. And time reveals itself as the most faithful of friends. Stay with me until the end, because what Emmanuel invites us to do is profound. Learn to wait with faith, without losing our shine. He reminds us that God's timing is never late. It arrives exactly when the heart is ready to receive the answer. And perhaps, as you hear these words, time is already working within you, healing, shaping, transforming, even if you don't yet realize it, because, in the end, Emmanuel was right. Time is the best interpreter of destiny. It reveals what haste hides, heals what despair wounds, and illuminates what was once darkness. Smooth transition. But what does it really mean to trust in divine timing? How can we learn to see God's hand even in moments when everything seems at a standstill? That's what we'll reflect on now. And perhaps that's why life often seems to be pushing us down paths we don't understand. Emmanuel used to say that no one suffers by chance, and when we first hear it, it seems harsh, unfair. But if you observe carefully, you'll realize there's a silent wisdom behind every pain. It's as if time, that invisible master, is preparing, something that can only be understood when the dust of emotions finally settles. Have you ever felt this? That feeling that something terrible happened, but after a while you realized it was exactly what you needed to become stronger, more aware, more yourself. Stay with me, because what we're about to explore might help you understand why certain wounds hurt so much, and why one day they transform into light. Emmanuel said that suffering is the deepest school of the soul, and it's at this point that many people lose faith. It's just when they're closest to transformation. And if this message resonates with you in any way, then it makes sense that I ask you something very simple, yet very important. If this topic resonates with your feelings, leave a comment below with what has touched you most so far. I want to note really which parts of your journey connect with this idea that time heals, teaches, and reveals. Your story might inspire someone who's currently going through exactly what you've experienced. And please also like this video, because each like helps this message reach more people who need to hear it right now. It may seem small, but that's how YouTube understands that this type of content has value, that it's worth showing to more people. And if you feel this kind of reflection is good for you, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell. Here we'll continue discussing Emmanuel's messages. What exists beyond what meets the eye, and how spirituality can guide our journey even on the most difficult days. Your presence here makes a difference, not only for me, but for this entire community of people who, like you, are searching for meaning, peace, and light. Now, take a deep breath, because what comes next will make you look at time and your own pain in a whole new way. Everything that hurts you today, tomorrow will be the light that will heal you. This phrase carries a different weight when we truly stop to feel what it means. Because in practice, no one wants to go through pain. No one chooses suffering. But still, it arrives expected, silent, sometimes tearing away everything we thought was stable. And then comes that inevitable question, why me? How many times have you asked yourself this question silently, without finding an answer? Emmanuel said that time is the greatest revealer of divine intentions. And perhaps that's precisely why the most difficult things in life don't make sense immediately. Time needs to work. It needs to refine, to reveal the invisible behind-the-scenes details of what, deep down, is being prepared for you. When we're in the midst of a storm, our vision becomes blurred. We only see chaos, but behind it is a sacred construction taking place, silent. Transformation. The truth is that every challenge is a spiritual summons. It's not punishment, it's guidance. Emmanuel used to explain that suffering is a kind of medicine for the soul, a treatment life offers to heal what we don't yet understand within ourselves. It's hard to hear, but think about it. How many times was it precisely a loss, frustration, or a mistake that pushed you onto a new, more authentic, truer path? now I want to go even deeper into this subject. Because, in reality, pain isn't the villain. It's the messenger. It's the one that comes to warn us that something within us needs to change a mindset, a choice, a way of seeing the world. Pain is the shock that awakens us. It's like the ringing of a bell that calls us to wake up. Emmanuel said that suffering is the lamp that illuminates the dark recesses of the spirit. And perhaps that's why. When we try to run away from pain, it insists on returning. Until we stop and listen to what it's trying to say, many people believe that spiritual transformation comes from moments of peace and meditation. And yes, these moments are important, but it is in despair, in the silence of the room when no one is watching, that the soul truly reveals itself. It is there that the spirit begins to learn the meaning of surrender, faith, and trust. It is there that we realize we have no control over everything, and that perhaps this isn't a bad thing. There's a hidden truth in suffering. It opens the portals of empathy. When you go through something that breaks you, you also begin to better understand the pain of others. This humanizes you, bringing you closer to the divine essence that exists within every being. And almost imperceptibly, what was once weakness begins to transform into strength. It's the same process as a scargly and painful at first, but over time, it becomes a sign of survival. Emmanuel taught that no one evolves without knowing the shadows of their own heart. And that's precisely where time acts as a teacher. It doesn't erase scars, but transforms their meaning. Time is not an enemy, it's an ally. It reveals the purpose hidden behind our failures. It shows that what seemed like the end was only the beginning of something new, something that could only be born after the old was destroyed. And it's curious how. Sometimes fate needs to use chaos to put us on the right path. Sometimes losing is the only way to win. Sometimes the universe needs to dismantle our structure to rebuild it the right way. And that's why Emmanuel always said that suffering is the school of spiritual maturation. Because without pain, there is no expansion. Without shock, there is no awakening. Pain is the most powerful reminder that we are alive. It forces us to look within, to rethink decisions, to change the way we deal with time, with people, with ourselves. When we understand this, we begin to realize that everything, absolutely everything, has a meaning even when we can't yet see it. Every tear is a coded message. Every loss is an invisible push. And every moment you thought I can't take it anymore was, in fact, the exact moment your soul was being forged. That's when Emmanuel makes himself present. With that serenity that always marked his messages through Chico Xavier's, if whispering trust, because everything is happening the way it needs to. And if you pay close attention, you'll notice that time doesn't just heal, it translates. It reveals the subtext of life, the hidden intentions of events, the purpose behind every twist and turn. Time is the interpreter of destiny. It takes what was once pain and transforms it into wisdom. There's immense beauty in this, understanding that what hurts you today may be precisely what will make you shine tomorrow. Because that's how light is born, from friction, from darkness, from the encounter between what was lost and what is about to be discovered. And when this understanding sets in, something changes forever. Pain stops being an enemy and becomes a teacher. Life, which once seemed unfair, begins to seem generous. And you understand that nothing, absolutely nothing, happens by chance. Comment here. That makes sense to me. I want to know if, in some way, this message resonated with you. Because what comes next will take us even deeper into this journey of understanding time, destiny, and the light that arises from pain. Few people know. But Emmanuel wasn't talking about religion. He was talking about the soul, about what lies behind matter, behind human time, and our deepest pains. He was a spirit who worked side by side with Chico Xavier, not as a distant figure, but as a true mentor, a guide who understood the weight and grandeur of the human experience. Emmanuel was, above all, an educator of the soul, and what he left through his messages continues to resonate to this day. As a silent reminder that nothing we experience is in vain, he said that pain is the force that hones the spirit, molding it until it becomes purer, more aware, more prepared to love. And if you stop and think about it, This is something that permeates any belief, any doctrine. Because all of us, at some point, feel life press in on us, confronting us with something that seems greater than we can bear. Emmanuel explained that it is precisely in these moments that the spirit grows. It is there on the border between despair and hope that human beings begin to discover who they truly are. Emmanuel's spiritual vision of time and pain is completely different from what we're used to. He said that human time is merely a shadow of divine time, because on the spiritual plane, the clock doesn't mark hours, it marks lessons learned. Each soul has its own rhythm, its own needs. And that's why often what seems like a delay is actually a protection. What seems like a loss is a detour calculated to put you on the right path. But we here on earth live in an age of haste. We want quick cures, immediate answers, happiness that comes with a click. The modern world has trained us to believe that everything has to happen now, and if it doesn't, it's because something went wrong. But spiritual time doesn't follow that clock. Emmanuel said that God works in silence and in the right time. And this is perhaps one of the hardest truths to accept. Because while we want to solve problems, the universe is preparing. While we want to understand, time is teaching. And there's something very beautiful about this waiting. It's where faith is put to the test. It's when everything seems still that the invisible is in motion. Emmanuel always reminded us that true faith isn't about believing when everything works out. It's about keeping your heart steadfast even when nothing seems to make sense. And that's where time comes in. It's not just a day counter. It's the great teacher who translates pain into wisdom, doubt into understanding, loss into transformation. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because there's a hidden truth that few realize. Time doesn't heal because it erases. It heals because it reveals. It reveals who you become after all. It reveals how much you've matured, how much you've learned to see things from a different perspective. Emmanuel said that suffering is an invisible artist who works in the shadows of the soul, shaping virtues, awakening compassion, and teaching us to see life with greater serenity. And when we look at it through the eyes of haste, we don't understand. The mind asks, why me? But the spirit whispers, because it was necessary. There's something profoundly liberating when we begin to trust this process, even without understanding every detail. Emmanuel used to remind us that God doesn't give us impossible burdens, only necessary challenges. This phrase changes everything when we truly feel it. What he meant is that every pain has a function, and every delay has a purpose. Spiritual time is the stage where the soul rehearses, makes mistakes, begins again, and matures. And that's why many answers only arrive when we're ready to hear them. Sometimes you ask for a solution, but time offers you silence not because it has forgotten you, but because it is still preparing the ground. Emmanuel taught that life doesn't deny what is ours. It merely postpones what we are not yet ready to receive. And this completely changes the way we live. Because when you understand that time is an ally, not an enemy, you stop fighting the flow of life and start walking with it. Emmanuel spoke a lot about this, about the importance of developing a spiritual mindset, capable of seeing meaning even in apparent chaos. And this is perhaps one of the most urgent lessons of modern times we're learning to wait today. We live in a society that fears silence, fears pauses, fears not being productive. But the soul's growth happens precisely in these intervals. Emmanuel said that time is like a river. It carries away what is no longer useful, but also brings back everything that is essential, as long as you don't fight the current. And when we observe our own lives with this perspective, we begin to notice the signs. The coincidences that aren't coincidences, the reunions that seem destined, the losses that later reveal themselves as liberations. Emmanuel invites us to understand that suffering is not the end of the story, but the beginning of a journey of inner revelation. He said that true spiritual maturity occurs when the soul stops asking why and starts asking what for. It is at this point that pain changes color. It ceases to be a punishment and becomes a tool. And time, which once seemed cruel, becomes the greatest ally of transformation. And perhaps this is Emmanuel's most powerful message for today. Not everything that hurts is punishment. Sometimes it's preparation. Time is the stage where the invisible works, where the pieces of destiny move silently. It is the interpreter of divine intentions, and that's why, when we look back, everything begins to make sense. So if you feel like you're going through something you don't understand right now, maybe you don't need to understand yet, because time is doing what it always does, polishing your soul, preparing the moment when pain will transform into light. Write in the comments, I'm on that journey too. I want to see who else is learning to trust this time that, even when it seems to take a long time, it never fails to reveal what is true. When Emmanuel said that pain is the force that shapes the spirit, he wasn't talking about something distant, reserved for great sages or those who live in silent temples. He was talking about me, about you, about all of us who, at some point, look up and ask, why is this happening to me? And perhaps the answer comes not in words, but in the form of silence, time, and transformation. The truth is that all pain carries within it a message, a purpose hidden between the lines of life. What seems like the end today may actually be the beginning of something greater. When you're going through a difficult time, instead of asking yourself, why is this happening? Perhaps the most powerful thing to do is ask, what is this pain trying to teach me? This simple shift in perspective is the turning point between anger and wisdom. Emmanuel always said that suffering is a demanding but fair teacher. It doesn't appear to punish, but to awaken. It comes to make you see what you wouldn't otherwise see. Think about it. How many times have you only changed direction after life pushed you hard? How many times has a loss made room for something that later proved essential? A dismissal that seemed unfair forced you to rediscover your talents. A painful breakup made you mature and understand what love truly is. Disappointment taught you to choose more consciously. Emmanuel explained that pain is the cocoon, the dark. It's a cramped place where the butterfly doesn't understand. It's what's happening, but is being prepared to fly. This metaphor is profound, because inside the cocoon, everything seems to fall apart. The caterpillar dissolves literally, but it is in this collapse that something new is born. And perhaps your life is going through this same process right now. Sometimes chaos isn't destruction, it's reconstruction. It's the universe reorganizing what no longer serves, so that something new can emerge. Emmanuel called this the divine pedagogy of life, the way God teaches us. It's not through punishment, but through experience. And it's curious to realize how time has an almost surgical precision. Things happen exactly when they need to, neither before nor after. Emmanuel said that haste is the enemy of evolution, and this makes perfect sense when we look at our own journey. How many times have you tried to force something to work, and despite all your effort, it didn't? And, sometime later, realize that it had led you astray? It's as if spiritual time is saying, calm down, it's not now. It's not ready yet. This is one of life's most powerful hidden truths. The universe doesn't deny what's yours, it simply prepares the ground before delivering it. And this preparation sometimes hurts, because preparing also means letting go. Emmanuel said that suffering is God's chisel, and he only uses this instrument where there's potential for growth. Pain is the invisible work of love. It's the impact that awakens the soul. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because understanding pain is not the same as passively accepting it. Emmanuel didn't teach blind resignation, but awareness. He said that true learning begins when we participate in our own healing process. When, instead of resisting, we begin to observe. When, instead of complaining, we ask, what is this situation trying to show me about myself? This is the key to transformation, not what happens to you, but what you do with what happens. Life, seen from this perspective, is a laboratory of evolution. And the curious thing is that the most profound lessons almost always come disguised as problems. The delay that irritates you may be teaching you patience. Failure may be training you for true success. Loneliness may be leading you to reconnect with yourself. Emmanuel said that tears are prayers the soul makes when the mouth cannot find words. This is beautiful and true, because often, suffering is the language through which the Spirit speaks. Think about the times you truly grew. Was it when everything was easy, or when you needed to reinvent yourself? Life's greatest revelations arise in the shadows of pain. The human mind tends to see only what has been lost, but spiritual time sees what is being built. Emmanuel said that faith isn't closing your eyes and waiting. It's opening your eyes and trusting, and perhaps this trust is the greatest challenge. Because it requires surrender, it requires relinquishing control. It requires understanding that there is a wisdom operating beyond your immediate comprehension. Emmanuel believed that spiritual evolution is a layered process. Each difficulty removes a part of the illusion. Each pain brings a new insight. Each new beginning is a step in the soul's return home. And when we look through this prism, we begin to realize that nothing is wasted. Not pain, not loss, not fear. Everything is part of a much broader script where the spirit is always being invited to evolve. Emmanuel said that God's time is the time of maturity. And maturity, on the spiritual plane, is learning to see light where before there was only shadow. When you start practicing this in your daily life, life changes. You begin to understand that every problem carries an opportunity in disguise. The loss of a job can be the push toward the purpose you've always postponed. A broken heart can make room for a more mature and true love. A period of loneliness can be the call to reconnect with what truly matters. Emmanuel said that every pain has the exact size of the lesson it brings. And if you look calmly, you'll realize that pain doesn't destroy, it reveals. It reveals how much stronger you are than you imagined. It reveals that behind the storm, there's a new version of you begging to be born. Pain, when properly understood, is a rite of passage. And time, with its infinite patience, is the master that accompanies you on this journey. Nothing happens by chance. Nothing is lost. Emmanuel said that even the most silent suffering is recorded in the invisible pages of eternity. And one day when the veil falls, everything will make sense. The pain that broke you today will be the same reason for your brilliance tomorrow. Tomorrow, comment here. That makes sense to me. I want to know if, at some point in your journey, you also felt time shape you, even without understanding. But with an open heart to learn, now I want to go even deeper into this subject. Because understanding pain and time isn't just about realizing that everything has a purpose, but about delving behind the scenes of your own life and seeing the force being shaped within you. Imagine for a moment that every suffering you experience is like a rough block of marble. At first glance, it seems rigid, cold, even unbearable. But time is the invisible sculptor working silently. It cuts, polishes, and sculpts. Every challenge, every tear, every disappointment, even if they seem random or cruel, are precise strokes of the chisel that are transforming you into something greater, stronger, more conscious. Emmanuel taught us that life is like this, a work in progress, and that each phase, however painful, has a precise place in the soul's final project. The impact of pain on our daily lives is more profound than we imagine. When we experience situations that seem to break us, we are actually being invited to develop a mindset of resilience. It's as if the universe is offering us an invisible roadmap, confronting us with decisions that will define not only who we are, but who we will become. The transformation that occurs in these moments is not just internal. It reverberates in our choices, in our relationships, in every small gesture. Emmanuel said that every tear is a seed of light in the soil of the soul. And this image shows us that even what hurts us can blossom into something beautiful and lasting, and it's fascinating to realize that this masterpiece of the soul doesn't reveal itself all at once. It's like a film that unfolds scene by scene, with behind-the-scenes details that only time can reveal. Today you may not understand why you lost a job, why someone you loved walked away, why an opportunity fell through. But in the future, when you look back, you'll realize that each apparent no was actually a silent direction, a fine-tuning of fate, paving the way for something much greater than you could have imagined. Every obstacle carries a hidden revelation, a lesson that only reveals itself when we're ready to see it, and this journey requires trust. Because time doesn't work according to the immediate logic the human mind desires. In the modern world, we want quick results, instant answers, immediate cures. But spiritual time doesn't run on this clock. It has its own precise and subtle compass working behind the scenes of life, patiently refining, shaping the essence, revealing what must be revealed at the right time. Emmanuel reminds us that patience is, therefore, a tool of wisdom, and that learning to trust the process is, in fact, a way to collaborate with one's own evolution. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because the hidden truth few realize is that suffering is simultaneously constructive and revelatory. It builds character, strengthens the mind, broadens vision, and, at the same time, reveals previously hidden truths. Truths about who you really are, about what is essential in your life, about the value of every decision you make. It is at this point that the impact of pain ceases to be mere suffering and transforms into strategic learning. Each moment of frustration, each apparent loss, is like a chapter in a book that only becomes clear when the entire narrative is seen from a broader perspective. And when we understand this, life transforms. Because understanding that time is the interpreter of destiny changes the way we face challenges. We are no longer victims of events. We become active participants in a journey that has depth, meaning, and purpose. Emmanuel invites us to realize that nothing happens by chance. Every stumble, every tear, every difficult decision carries an invisible force that propels us forward. It's as if time were a silent mentor, guiding every movement, polishing every flaw, revealing every potential hidden behind our own limitations. And the beauty of this is that when understanding sets in, even the most intense pain begins to make sense. The loss that seemed devastating transforms into learning, failure into opportunity, frustration into creative strength. Time, patient and precise, reveals that what seemed like a barrier was, in fact, the path to one's own light. Emmanuel said that every challenge in life is a preparation, every difficulty a step on the ladder of evolution. And when we look back, we realize that all the pain carried the seeds of something great that would yet blossom, and it is precisely at this point that the impact becomes transformative. Because you begin to understand that what hurts today will make you shine tomorrow. That every tear shed is a catalyst for light. Every scar a map that indicates the path to maturity. Time is the silent sculptor. Emmanuel is the voice that reminds us of the divine intention behind every event. And our soul is the masterpiece being constructed at this moment. Comment here. I'm on that journey too. Want to know who is feeling this connection with how time transforms pain into light? How each chapter of life has its purpose, and how, even in the darkness, there is already a work being sculpted within each of us. And if you've made it this far, I want to thank you for truly dedicating this time to delve into this profound topic. You know, this connection we've created throughout the video is very special. Because we're reflecting together on something that touches the soul, on how to transform pain into light and understand time as our silent ally. So, if this resonates with you, if you feel like this content has brought some clarity or insight to your life, subscribe to the channel. The idea here is to continue sharing messages, reflections, and discoveries that help you on this journey of spiritual growth and self-discovery. And if you want to show me that you followed it until the end, leave a comment with the phrase, "I'm with you until the end." It'll be amazing to see who's truly connecting with each reflection and each lesson. Also, please like the video. It's a way to reinforce the connection we've created. Here, assign that together. We're building this space for learning and transformation. And look, there's a video right here that adds incredible depth to this topic. It's worth sticking with me there because it delves even deeper into this idea of how pain, time, and the choices we make can reveal paths we never imagined. So click and let's embark on this journey together, discovering more and more about the light that emerges from each life experience.